Hello everyone, my name is Eva Trachtman, and today we're going to go over the human body systems. In order to dive into all the complicated relationships between the human body systems, we first need to know the levels of organization. These are the cells. They are the smallest. Individual cells tend to be specialized. Next are tissues, which are a group of cells performing a certain function. There are four main categories of tissues: the epithelial, the connective, the nervous, and the muscle. The epithelial tissue is sort of like the wrapping paper. It can be found on the skin, the lining of the digestive system, and on certain glands. Their main function is protection and absorption and excretion of materials. The connective tissue is like the ligament of the organ systems. It connects, supports, and binds organs. The nervous tissue makes up the brain and spinal cord. It receives and transmits nerve impulses. And the muscle tissue is found in skeletal muscles surrounding the digestive tract, and blood vessels, and the heart. Muscle tissue is responsible for voluntary and involuntary movement. Tissues make up organs, which in return make up the organ systems that perform similar functions. Now that we know what the human body systems are composed of, we need to know what the ultimate purpose of the organs is. Let me introduce you to homeostasis. Homeostasis describes the relatively constant internal physical and chemical conditions that organisms maintain despite changes on the outside and the inside. Many things can disrupt homeostasis, for example, an increase or decrease in outside temperature. In order to keep the body stable, we use feedback inhibition, which is a process in which a stimulus triggers a response that opposes the stimulus, also called negative feedback. A daily example can be the home heating system. Once it gets too cold inside the home, you don't feel comfortable, so you go and change the thermostat to a higher temperature than before, and you start feeling better. Now that we know what the body systems are working together to maintain, we can move on to explain the body systems. First, we have our digestive system. The digestive system breaks down and processes the food we intake in four phases: ingestion, digestion, absorption, and elimination. Ingestion is the act of putting food in your mouth. Then, the food is broken down by mechanical and chemical digestion, mechanical being our teeth and chemical being the enzymes. In our mouth, those enzymes are in our saliva. There are also enzymes in our stomach and small intestine. How does absorption occur during digestion? The small intestine's surface is a series of many folds. The folded surface provides an enormous surface area for absorption of nutrients. The intestine has small finger-like projections called villi, which are covered in even smaller tentacle-like projections called microvilli, which absorb nutrients. Absorption from the large intestine is aided by the large colonies of harmless bacteria located in it, which produce compounds that the body is able to absorb and use. Our digestive path is concluded with elimination, which has the digestive and excretory systems join forces and excrete the waste products that are produced during digestion. Some issues that may arise. If not enough water is absorbed, we experience diarrhea. If too much water is absorbed, constipation occurs. I wonder what he just did. Oh yeah, he just completed his excretory system phase. Now the excretory system includes the skin, lungs, liver, and kidneys, and it excretes metabolic wastes from the body. The skin excretes sweat. The lungs excrete carbon dioxide. The liver helps convert harmful nitrogen wastes into urea, a less toxic waste. And the kidneys remove excess water, urea, and metabolic wastes from the blood. The kidneys may debatably be the most important organs in the excretory system. The kidneys are jam-packed with nephrons. These are tiny units where filtration occurs. Filtration takes place in the glomerulus, which is a dense network of capillaries. Blood pressure forces fluids out of the capillaries and into the Bowman's capsule. This results in a filtrate of water, urea, glucose, amino acids, salts, and some vitamins. Then the kidney throws away that waste. This fluid mixture, now called urine, is transported to the ureters of each kidney, from which they are carried into the bladder and then finally excreted through the urethra. The circulatory system transports oxygen, nutrients, and other substances throughout the body and removes waste from tissues. The transporters are red blood cells. They travel through arteries, which are large vessels, capillaries, which are small vessels, and veins, which are located near skeletal muscles. The circulatory system also includes plasma, which is 90% water, white blood cells that help the body fight off infections, and platelets, which influence clotting. The lymphatic system is a network of vessels, nodes, and organs that collects lymph leaving the capillaries, checks it for microorganisms, and returns back to the circulatory system. Lymph is a colorless fluid containing white blood cells. The lymphatic system aids in nutrient absorption and immunity. It helps absorb fat-soluble vitamins from the digestive tract and send them off into the bloodstream. In immunity, the lymph nodes act as filters, trapping harmful microorganisms, debris, and stray cancer cells, which are then destroyed by the white blood cells located inside the lymph nodes. This is an over-exaggerated representation of a person breathing. This is the respiratory system. Its function is picking up oxygen from the air and exhaling carbon dioxide. Gas exchange and transport takes place in the respiratory system. Inside the alveoli, air sacs in the lungs, oxygen dissolves and diffuses into the blood. Once oxygen is diffused into the blood, the hemoglobin in red blood cells binds to oxygen, increasing the blood's oxygen-carrying capacity by more than half. Carbon dioxide, on the other hand, combines with water and forms carbonic acid. How do we breathe? We breathe due to a series of contractions in the muscles surrounding the rib cage and diaphragm. Breathing isn't purely voluntary. If we had to control our breathing at all times, we would have died of suffocation because actively thinking about inhalation and exhalation will mean you can't sleep. This is why the nervous system has final control over breathing muscles. The muscular system is comprised of 3 different types of muscle tissues that are specialized for different functions. The skeletal muscle is a form of striated muscle tissue, which is under the voluntary control of the somatic nervous system. The smooth muscle, in which the contractile fibrils are not highly ordered, occurring in the gut and other internal organs and not under voluntary control. And cardiac muscle, which is responsible for the contractions of the heart, but that is also under involuntary control. The integumentary system is comprised of our skin. It is the largest organ on our body and helps serve as a barrier against infection and injury. It helps regulate body temperature through excretion of sweat, gathers sensory information, which is then transmitted to the central nervous system, and produces vitamin D. The nervous system collects information about the internal and external environment, processes that information, and responds to it. The cells included in this system are called neurons. There are 3 different types of neurons. Sensory neurons, which carry impulses from the sense organs, such as the eyes and ears, to the central nervous system. Motor neurons transmit orders from the central nervous system to muscles and glands. Inner neurons process the information from sensory neurons and send commands to other motor and inner neurons. There are numerous nervous systems inside the nervous system, the main one being the central nervous system, which includes the brain and spinal cord. Then, there is the peripheral nervous system, which contains nerves and associated cells that are not the brain or spinal cord. Inside the peripheral nervous system are 2 more systems, the first being the somatic nervous system, which regulates activities that we do consciously, such as movement of skeletal muscles. The second is the autonomic nervous system, which regulates subconscious body activities, such as heart contractions. The autonomic nervous system is also split into 2 systems, the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the fight or flight reaction, and the parasympathetic nervous system, aka rest and digest. The skeletal system is responsible for body support, movement, protection of internal organs, storage of minerals, and blood cell formation. There are 2 types of skeletons, the axial skeleton, which contains the skull, vertebra, and the rib cage, and the appendicular skeleton, which has the bones of the arms, legs, pelvis, and shoulder area. The bones are connected by immovable joints, slightly movable joints, and freely movable joints. Their function is clearly stated in the name. The endocrine system is comprised of glands that release hormones which travel through the blood and control the actions of cells, tissues, and organs. They are also transported out of the body along with the waste from the digestive system. The main hormonal gland is located in the brain. The hypothalamus sends signals to the pituitary gland, which sends signals to other glands in the body to start secreting hormones. Hormones are like little on-off buttons for the organs. They remind them when they need to do their jobs and activate and deactivate them when they are necessary. Many of the organs that are controlled by hormones regulate movement, digestion, excretion, etc. Endocrine glands are controlled by negative feedback. Reproduction occurs when sperm, from a male, fertilizes an egg from a female. Each gender has their own functions. All the puberty-related functions in males are influenced by the hormone testosterone, while in girls it's estrogen. The male body has many organs that aid with the production of seminal fluid, which helps propel the millions of sperm through their journey towards a single female egg. In females, an egg is released every 28 days following the menstrual cycle, which involves the interaction of the endocrine and reproductive systems. Now that we finished talking about the body systems, let's return back to homeostasis. Now, how can the body be triggered out of homeostasis by outside organisms? It can be triggered by infectious diseases, which are caused by viruses, bacteria, fungi, protists, and parasites. These pathogens harm the body and mess with its functions. The body has two major lines of defense. The first being the skin, which is so thick that very few pathogens can actually penetrate the layers and layers of dead skin cells. The second line of defense is an inflammatory response to tissue damage caused by injury or infection. Non-specific defenses against pathogens include the skin, tears and other secretions, the inflammatory response, and fever. Although knowing how to combat pathogens is important, who is to say that our body won't turn against our own cells by mistake? Every one of our own cells carries a chemical marker that acts as a code word. I'm one of you! But a stranger cell won't be recognized by the immune system and will be destroyed and marked. Marked, meaning if it were to ever come back, the immune system would remember it and would know how to combat it. The cells responsible for destruction of these pathogens and antigens are the B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes, also known as B cells and T cells. Each of these cells is capable of recognizing one specific antigen. There are two different types of immunities in our body. The first being humoral immunity, which protects against antigens in body fluids such as the lymph or blood. The second being cell-mediated immunity, which is an immune response that defends the body against viruses, fungi, and abnormal cancer cells inside living cells. What happens if the immune system doesn't function properly? If the immune system doesn't function properly, people develop serious issues such as allergies, asthma, autoimmune disease, and AIDS, which is caused by human immunodeficiency virus, also known as HIV. Overall, I hope you noticed that all of these systems help aid their fellow systems. For example, the lymphatic system helps the immune system by getting rid of antigens, and the excretory system is responsible for transporting the waste of all the other systems. This has been a long lesson, but I hope that you all have a good day. Oh, and quick shout out to my 3 brothers that somehow managed to deal with me filming them doing weird things. Thank you, brothers.